right, well, let's go ahead and get started. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. My name is Bryn Muma. I'm an associate professor of emergency medicine at UC Davis and the current chair of the SAEMF Grants Committee. And it's my pleasure today to talk with you a little bit about the grants offered by the SAEMF Foundation so that you have a better understanding of what's available to you. So at the end of this session, my hope is that you will be able to identify some SAEMF funding opportunities that align with your training, interests, and expertise, that you'll be able to describe key elements of a successful SAEMF grant application, and that you'll be able to identify resources available from SAEM to assist you in preparing a successful SAEMF grant application. So this is a busy slide, I realize that, but this shows you all of the grants that SAEMF offers. So this is the complete list of the 18 grants that we currently offer. I want to take just a moment to highlight two grants that are new for this year. They are the Geriatric Emergency Medicine Research Catalyst Grant, made possible through the generosity of long-term SAEM member Dr. Michelle Blanda. This grant provides up to $10,000 over the course of 1 year to address research questions leading to improved emergency care and quality of life for older patients, as well as to provide catalyst funding for the pursuit of federal or other funding that leads to improving the quality of care received by older adults. The other new grant that's coming in this year's cycle is the ED Benchmarking Alliance grant, which is co-sponsored by SAEMF and the ED Benchmarking Alliance. This provides up to $25,000 a year for 2 years for a research study related to ED clinical operations. And then I also want to highlight two unique grants that are here in the lower right corner, the NIDA Mentor Facilitated Training Award in Substance Use Disorders and the GEMSTAR for Emergency Medicine Supplemental Funding Program. And these two grants have a slightly different eligibility criteria, format, and structure than the other ones we'll talk about today. So if you're interested in these two grants specifically, I'd recommend that you go to our website. And here is the QR code. If you're on your phone, you want to scan that website. This will take you to the SAEMF grants portfolio, the list of all the categories that we offer each year. And if you aren't able to scan this code right now, you can just into any search engine type SAEMF what we fund, and it'll take you right to that web page. So let's take a few minutes and look at which grants might be right for you based on your level of training, your areas of interest, and your expertise. So SAEMF offers grants for EM researchers the whole way from medical students up through senior faculty, with really a focus on supporting junior faculty who are launching research careers. So medical students and residents are eligible for the RAMs, the Resident and Medical Student Research Grants. These are $2,500 for medical students and up to $5,000 for residents to support research projects. When we look, we have a lot of grants listed here that are available for fellow, clinical instructor, and junior faculty through the assistant professor level. Most of these are in the $5,000 to $10,000 range, but you can see we have the Education Research Training Grant and the Research Training Grant, both of which are 2-year grants. One is $50,000 a year for 2 years. The other one is $150,000 a year for 2 years. We also have the ARMED grants. The ARMED grants are a little special. They are intended specifically for graduates of the ARMED courses. So the ARMED research course and then the ARMED medical education research course. One more thing, all of the grants here are mentored grants, which means that you apply as the applicant, but you also need to have a named mentor who's providing mentoring, training, and career development throughout the course of that grant, who's helping you to complete a high quality research study. Then I mentioned that we have grants that are available to more senior faculty. So these are listed here. The ED Benchmarking Alliance, which is, there's a typo here. This is $50,000, not $20,000. The Education Project Grant, which is $20,000. The Toxicology Research Grant, co-sponsored with the Medical Toxicology Foundation for $20,000. The Emerging Infectious Disease and Preparedness Grant, which was new a few years ago, brought on during COVID, but certainly not limited to COVID, any infectious disease category would be eligible for this. And finally, the large project grant. All of these grants, our applicants are eligible to apply either as an independent or as a mentored researcher. As with the previous grants, if you are applying as a mentored applicant, then you need to have a mentoring plan as part of your application. So in addition to level of training, the other factor that sort of determines which grant is most appropriate for you is your research expertise, your areas of interest, and the topic of your research for this proposal. So the RAMS, the ARMED, the research training grant, and the large project grant are open grants. They are submissions on a wide variety of topics, really anything related to emergency medicine research, from basic science, translational, clinical trials, through to epidemiologic studies. Anything broadly relevant to emergency medicine is accepted for these general grants. Those with training and interest in specific topics within emergency medicine, medical education, infectious diseases, toxicology, geriatrics, and clinical operations are encouraged to apply for the grants focused on those topics. And then finally, we have several grants that I mentioned earlier that are co-sponsored by the SAEM academies. These generally require an applicant to be a member of the academy, and they fund smaller projects related to the mission of the academy that are often meant to serve as pilot projects for larger studies in the future. If you do have an idea or a possible grant proposal that you think could fit into more than one category, we ask that you only apply to one category, but please reach out to us. Reach out to the staff at grants@saem.org so that we can help you choose the best category for your research. This is the SAEM Foundation application cycle. Right now is the perfect time to start thinking about your applications. The requests for applications will be posted in the coming weeks, and then the application site will open for accepting applications on May 1st with a deadline of August 1st. After the grants are received, they undergo administrative review to confirm eligibility and completeness, and then they'll be assigned to reviewers, with their review meetings typically taking place in October, and decisions sent sometime in December for a July 1st start date. So the application that you would put in for this coming August would potentially start the following July 1st. So let's shift a little bit and talk about the components of an SAEMF grant application. Almost all of our applications, with the exception of the two that I highlighted earlier, follow a similar structure with the following sections: specific aims, research strategy, bio sketches, letters of support, and a training or mentoring plan. I'd like to focus a little bit on each of these sections and give you some tips for how to strengthen your application. So applications begin with a specific aims page. And this is really important because this may be the only page that some reviewers, some people who are scoring your grant, read from your grant. So you'll have several assigned reviewers who will read your entire proposal in detail, but others who are involved in the discussion may only read your specific aims page. So it's really important to clearly and concisely summarize your project and explain to the reviewers what you're planning to do. You need to provide enough background to demonstrate the knowledge gap and the critical need that your study will fill, and then a statement about your overall objective, followed by your central hypothesis, and then 2 to 3 specific aims, really no more than 2 to 3 specific aims, and then hypotheses that very closely match those specific aims. And the aims and the hypotheses really need to be tightly aligned. And then the specific aims should also include just a very brief, 1 to 2 sentence statement about your methods, how you're going to achieve these aims. And this is for all of our applications, as it is for the NIH, the specific aims is limited to 1 page. The next major section is the research strategy. This differs a little bit in length between the categories. As you would expect, those with smaller funding amounts are expected to be smaller projects, and the research strategy is shorter in length. The bigger projects are allowed a little bit more space to describe what is probably going to be a larger project. The research strategy is typically divided into 3 sections: the significance, innovation, and approach. So a good research strategy is very clearly organized, often with your own outline and structure subheadings to guide the reviewers, whatever fits your project. If possible, it's really nice to include a conceptual diagram, tables, or other images to break up the text and really kind of bring the proposal to life. It's really important to include an analysis plan as well as a timeline to show the reviewers that you've really thought through this project. You've thought through the whole way to the end, it's feasible within the funding period, and you have a plan for getting it completed on time. Finally, all proposals have limitations, and you addressing them with alternative approaches and backup plans will further demonstrate that your study is well planned and feasible. If you don't point out the limitations, the reviewers certainly will when they go through. So it's always best to be honest about the limitations and have a plan to address them. Another key component of the applications that can sometimes be overlooked is the biosketches. So the SAEMF Foundation uses the current NIH biosketch format. So if you've submitted a grant before, you're likely familiar with this. It's a little bit different than a CV. It's sort of like a focused CV relevant to the grant that you're submitting. And it's really important to tailor all of the biosketches from you, from your mentor, from your co-investigators, from your consultants, to this specific grant proposal. The biggest pitfall by far that we see in biosketches is not revising them from a prior submission to tailor them to the current application. The biosketch has 3 sections. It changes a little bit from year to year with NIH guidance, but typically 3 main sections: the personal statement, positions, scientific appointments and honors, and then contributions to science. And I want to just take a minute to talk about the personal statement because this is a really important piece of the biosketch. This is where you make yourself stand out. So in the personal statement section of the biosketch, this is why you want to show why you are the best person for the grant. You are the best person to complete this study. It's important to talk about how the current proposal relates to your prior work and your overall career goals, and how this study will allow you to achieve those goals. It's also the spot to address any gaps in your research or training, particularly any gaps that you plan to fill with this proposal. And then finally, for the SAEMF Foundation grants, there's one unique piece, and that is involvement in SAEM is one of the evaluation criteria. So if you have been heavily involved with SAEM, the personal statement section of the biosketch is a great place to highlight that, rather than just putting it as a line somewhere in the biosketch, highlighted in that personal statement so the reviewers are sure to notice it. And then for your mentors, your co-investigators, your consultants, the biosketches should really showcase their relevant experience and their specific contributions to this proposal. And their relevance really could be in content, in methods, or another aspect of their prior work. If these sections of the biosketches aren't tailored appropriately, it may appear that a contributor really doesn't have the relevant expertise for your project and may even leave the reviewers confused about why they're included. Letters of support. So in general, when you're submitting an application, even for a smaller project, it's important to include a letter of support from anyone who will be supporting the project. We always require a letter of support from the department chair, as well as from the mentor for mentored application. And then beyond that, anyone else involved in the project in a key role should provide a letter. So this is typically people like co-investigators, but if there is someone else at your institution who is giving you any sort of support, like donating their time or allowing you to borrow a certain piece of equipment from their lab, it's important to have a letter from them, just simply stating that, yes, they agree to give you the support that you're saying you'll need. And this, again, things to include in these letters are if your department is giving you travel funds to attend the SAEM meeting, if your department is giving you protected time, buy down from clinical shifts to complete the research project, those are things to include in these letters. And then finally, the letters are a nice way to show communication and collaboration within the team as well, to show the relationship and talk about any mentoring relationship you've had in the past, or any collaborative projects you've completed in the past beyond what might be included on a biosketch. And then as I mentioned before, all of our applications All of our applicants who apply as mentored applicants are required to include a training or a mentoring plan. In the larger research training grant, so the education research training grant and the research training grant, this is a dedicated section, 1 to 3 pages, depending on the application. And then for the other grants, it's typically included within the mentor's letter of support. And this plan should really include detailed objectives, and it should align closely with the research project itself. The training plan really is tailored to your needs, but it may include things like informal and formal coursework, research team meetings, and even career development activities. So how do you get started with this? This sounds daunting. How do you get started? SAEM has a lot of resources that can help you. So first, every year at the SAEM annual meeting, the research committee, together supported by the grants committee, supports an in-person grant writing workshop. Typically on the Tuesday of the annual meeting, it's an all-day workshop that goes from about 8 to 5 and is really valuable. There are also the ARMED and the ARMED Med Ed courses that I mentioned earlier. These courses meet virtually and in person throughout the course of the year to provide a little bit more in-depth training and research methods and design, as well as some grant writing courses. We also have the SAEM website with a lot of resources. We have grant writing webinars that have been recorded, both from individual webinars as well as one of the years of the grant writing workshop. Several of the large group didactic sessions from the grant writing workshop are also available in recorded format. They're a few years old, but the content is still highly relevant. And then the research learning series, which is also hosted by the SAEM research committee, has gone through several iterations over the year. Currently, it's sort of a podcast interview format meant to be interactive. And these are great resources for just kind of brushing up them. Most of them are 30 to 60 minutes long. And you can just kind of, as you're getting ready to write your bio sketch, listen to the section on bio sketches and make sure you're kind of hitting all those tips that are mentioned in the recording. And then finally, if you have any issues or questions about the grant submission itself, we do have an online tutorial available for that. And especially if you're having any issues with the grant submission or any questions that aren't answered by these tutorials, by all means, please reach out to me or to the SAEM grant staff. You can reach them at grants@saem.org. They are wonderful and they will reply very quickly to your questions. So I'm going to pause. I'm going to open it up for questions. I appreciate your time today. I appreciate your interest in these grants. I hope this has provided you with a better opportunity of the SAEMF grant opportunities available and how to apply for them. But please reach out with questions. We want to support your research. We want you to be successful in getting these grants. I'm taking a quick look at the chat. And I see, thank you, Julie, for sharing those resources. And she's been answering questions for me. Wonderful. Any other questions? You're welcome to, I think you can unmute yourselves and ask or type them into the chat.
Hi, Dr. Brain. This is Jonathan Kajimu from Uganda. I just completed medical school and I'm very much interested in emergency medicine and with a special interest in academic emergency medicine. I had just one small question. I've before navigated the same grants and I think I reached a point where I felt like being from Uganda, I was a bit limited from from applying for some of the grants because I didn't have that affiliation to any US program. And I'm just wondering if someone has graduated from medical school and they're working as junior doctors, they've not yet gone for EM residency. Are there any same grants that they could qualify to apply for?
We probably want to talk a little bit more with you about your specific situation. I know for the medical student grants, we restrict it to medical students who are at an LCME, an accredited medical school, which would restrict it to the US and Canada. And I believe we do this, I think this is the same for the residency program, but there is a possibility that you would be eligible depending on your situation if you have an appointment with within a United States-based institution. And I don't think we restrict it to US-based institutions. It's just an appointment within a department or division of emergency medicine. Julie, do you want to add anything to that?
I actually did check in with Melissa Bryn, and she did give guidance that it should be a US affiliated or US based program.
Any other questions? All right, well, please reach out as you please take a look at the website. Please reach out as you have questions. We are here to help. We want to help you submit the best application possible and hopefully get funded. Thank you.
Thank you, Bryn.